What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Daddy, and I'm back with another video with Lil Rico. And we here with Don, Dan, Ross, and Bahati.
My name is Don Coleon Mahone, and I'm a surety bond underwriter for Liberty Mutual Insurance.
My name is Bahati Batula. I am 27 from Chicago. I am a judge coordinator for the Cook County Clerk's Office.
I am Dan Ware. I'm in advertising and marketing. I'm currently a director at 1035 Advertising Agency.
What's up, everybody? My name is Ross McDonald. I'm a finance professional by day and an entrepreneur by night. In other words, I make everything happen. I'm a Renaissance man.
For this episode, we're going to be talking about the perception of Chicago and some successful men from the area. My first question for y'all is, how did y'all feel about growing up in Chicago? Bahati.
Born and raised in Chicago. My parents actually immigrated here from Tanzania in East Africa, but I had the privilege of going to high school, elementary school, all in Chicago public schools. And one thing that I do see is it does have a negative perception. There are excellent schools in Chicago, some of the best in the country, so don't believe the hype.
In Chicago was fun. I mean, I always felt like it was something to do. The school system does get a bad rep, a lot because what you see on the news, or the area gets a bad rep because of the news, but it actually is a lot of fun, and just as many successful people have come from Chicago as the other places.
I'll take a different approach. Growing up in Chicago, at the time, social media wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is today, and so you pretty much only know what you're exposed to as a young kid. So, you know, growing up, I thought Chicago was awesome. You know what I mean? You know, you don't really learn, you know, what your neighborhood lacked or Chicago lacked until you actually exposed to other things. You know, I never truly understood the concept of good schools versus bad schools from a private school or public school standpoint, or just a true funding standpoint. But, you know, in all, I think Chicago is awesome. You know, it obviously has some things we can improve on, but, you know, at the time, I wouldn't change anything from where I came from.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. You know, growing up in Chicago, I feel like it's contributed immense amount to just my personality and just the way I think and how I approach situations, just from various situations in my life, just that I wouldn't have learned anywhere else besides in Chicago. Being that, you know, social media wasn't prevalent, you know, we only had Facebook when I was in high school. Twitter doesn't exist. Instagram didn't exist. It wasn't until after I left Chicago to go to school that I learned kind of the stereotypes and things about Chicago. So, but all in all, you know, when I grew up there, you know, throughout its ups and downs, you know, it was still my city.
What are some things that you guys think that Chicago needs to improve on? Bahati?
I would definitely say gun violence and inadequate school funding equally across the board. I think that we see that a lot of areas that have nicer homes, nicer businesses, have better funded schools, which results in, you know, better test scores, et cetera, et cetera. You know, the whole achievement gap thing translates into how, you know, our youth become successful. So it starts from funding and onwards, and definitely tackling gun violence, making sure that individuals that shouldn't have guns don't have guns, and those who are law-abiding can still have weapons to protect themselves and their families. So those are probably the top two that I think.
The quicker, more immediate fixes, you know, I think it's definitely about, you know, showing our youth, you know, that there are more and better ways. And I think you guys have an excellent platform to do that. You know, it's definitely about, for me, I try to do everything with love, and I think that can translate to a lot of things. I think in Chicago, there are a lot of people that are walking around without purpose. They're walking around, you know, without that kind of love in their heart for their fellow brothers and sisters, and that's how you get into this situation, the circle of violence and things of that nature. And I think that translates, you know, outwardly from the news and the music and things like that. And because, you know, some people are, you know, living kind of without purpose and things like that, they kind of latch on to, you know, the easy thing, which is being tough and to being the hardest out. And I think that we've done an excellent job of marketing that. I think everybody in the world knows that, right? And now, do I think that's a good thing? Not at all. And I think, you know, when people kind of radiate and exude that love and show people that there's that purpose and that they can have a better life if they just, you know, focus on what's important to them and not focus on so much of the negative stuff, I think that could dramatically improve Chicago. And I think you do that long term by touching the youth and making sure that they're able to grow up thinking that immediately out the womb versus figuring it out on their own when they're 18 and it's too late,
There's no right answer. I say that because politicians have been trying to figure this out for quite some time. But if I had to say kind of what are the most important things I would try to focus on to improve Chicago, it's kind of almost like a two-pronged approach. I would probably have to kind of piggyback on both Dan and Bahati. Looking at it from a two-pronged approach, we're going to need funding, going to need more access to resources for all, different neighborhoods. We're going to need more jobs. That's kind of the Republican way of thinking at it from a top down. Just pump in more money, top down. Corporations just, tax breaks. Corporations create more jobs. People have work. That's one way. But the way coming from a more urbanized mindset is literally thinking about what are the after school programs. What are the ways from Dan's standpoint. How are kids able to have a platform to one be inspired by looking up to someone, because I remember in my particular neighborhood, the people we looked up to weren't the type of people you would want them to look up to. You don't see them, they're not visible in those particular neighborhoods. So one is obviously we need to create jobs, but two, we also need to create a new sense of purpose, and that's going to come with the after school programs, as well as just overall media portrayal. And I think right here the 606 Talk is a great platform to start.
I think the main thing for me is probably with more youth programs. Just with technology being so big now, and especially a platform like this, I think if you can get more kids involved in technology sooner, and not just the social media, you can get them involved in coding or any type of IT stuff. I think you can get it early on where it's just everyday nature to them. So when they grow up, they go to college, that's a really big field now. And I think we don't put enough focus on that. Our technology focus is only on social media, which is only a small part of what's actually going on in the world.
How do y'all feel when y'all worked hard on something and y'all succeeded at it? Bahati?
It's definitely a pat yourself on the back type of moment. You definitely you don't want to feel like, your efforts went into vain, but at the same time, you also gotta, if you don't succeed at it, you gotta look at it as a learning situation and see what you can adjust and what you can work on. So the next time that opportunity or that call comes, that you're prepared and you're ready, you can succeed at that second, third, or fourth time, because the first time it's not always going to be successful. It's just, keeping a strong head and pushing through regardless of, the circumstances. But to answer your question, it feels great. It makes you hungrier. Once you get that taste of success, what's the next level? What's 1A, what's 1B, what's 1C?
I definitely think that, whenever you've worked hard and you've accomplished something, right, that you always wanted to do, you want to take that time to be happy for yourself and things like that, right? And enjoy that moment, because of the fact that if you don't, you start to keep chasing other things, and you start to fall in what's called a hedonistic cycle, which is where you just keep chasing the next thing to make you feel better. Keep chasing the next thing to make you feel better. You get that car, you need that house, you get the house, you need a helicopter, you need a helicopter, you need a jet, things like that. But at the same time, to be successful, you kind of have to have that mind state, at least successful in the sense of monetarily, right? And, I like to live by act like you've been here before. So, you never want to, be too happy about any one moment in your life, or at least I should say at least one accomplishment, because you want to keep that going. You want to make it so fluent that you just keep going. You worked hard and this happened. Cool. What's the next thing? Let's keep it moving. Let's keep these wins going. You always want to stay on the table while you hot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna look at it from a different angle. Success is obviously kind of the best parts of life, right? Reasons why we smile. But for me, I think always the thing that's ever driven me was the failures. I think Bahati talked about it's kind of like understanding, when you fail at something, it's a good feeling to me only because, wow, I failed at something I was trying really hard at. now it's the greatest learning experience because I now know I never want to feel this feeling again. Then I learn from it. All right, how do I do this better? How can I make, the next time I'm forced, with this obstacle, how can I overcome it? And I think, as a young person, the moment you start to learn, what failure is, the best way to prevent it moving forward, right? So, whether it's a test, oh man, I didn't study too long. Next time I know I need to do it, or better yet, like I remember those tests when I was in grade school versus when I was in college. Obviously completely different, but if I failed a test in college, I'm like, man, what the heck did I do wrong? Now I know how to look at it. And even just, more practical stuff. If you're playing a video game, you playing Fortnite, why did I lose? Oh man, well I shouldn't have, the rain killed me or something, whatever it is. But you can apply that to everything in your life, whether it's talking to girls, I come out and get her number. Oh, I couldn't get it because, I went in with a corny joke. Okay, the jokes, that's over with, or pickup line, that's over with. And the same with just life in general. Why didn't I get this job? I wasn't prepared. Or yet, they looked at my GPA or this, that, and the third. So the failures are always the things that push me the furthest. The success is cool, but like he said, it's like, oh man, maybe if I'm happy about this success, maybe I should have been reaching higher in the first place.
Yeah, just to kind of just go over what everyone said again. As a kid, living with my mom, she always said, this saying that it's as corny as it was to me then, it's kind of funny because he just said something about it now, but she always said when you get to the end zone, act like you've been there before. So for me, success was great. I just imagined like, okay, I got an A on my test. Me come home and it's like, at first it's like celebrate it, but like I think this is a problem that we kind of have in society. Like when, just going a little bit off topic here, but when people do have success a lot, I almost feel like we start to hate on them. Like almost like maybe, like we find reasons not to like it. But what we don't see is the amount of work and effort that they put in, or how many times they failed at something. And I think that builds character. Like there's no way you're gonna be good and succeed at every single thing you do. The failure builds a lot more than success does to me. So, I mean, you get to find out what's wrong and little ways to fix things or tweak this or tweak that. Which with success, I think sometimes if it comes too easy, like you don't make any changes. You kind of live on that. But with a combination of both, I think it helps you grow as a person and as a man.
I agree. All y'all said.
Alright, so I have a question for all you. What would you guys give advice back to your 7th grade self?
Oh man.
Bahati.
How do you be on the spot quick?
That's all right, because he's gonna be like, I agree with all the rest of the guys said.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
Stop being lazy. I think,
Right now,
I was smart, but I was lazy. So I always did, sort of the bare minimum to just, okay, cool, let me get that C, let me get that B, I'm cool.
Just like me.
But everything that you learn builds up on it. It's the foundation. It builds up on each other. So, eventually, it's going to follow you, whether it's, something that you did academically or something in your personality and in your, it's going to follow you. So, stop being lazy, carry yourself with pride, and take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way, regardless, if you think you're going to get it or not.
It's funny because I was thinking about what I would say, right? But like I would just be like, keep going, like keep doing, because what you in all the movies, right? When you go back in time, you change something, right? You end up messing. Like you step on that ant or that butterfly, and not everything's actually a butterfly effect. You know what I'm saying? But so, and I say it to say is like I'm a big believer in that. To the point of Ross was saying, like your failures make you. You know what I'm saying? Like because you learn. So it's like in 7th grade, if I wouldn't have failed that test, or if I would have got that girl's number, that if I would have did this, I would have did that, it might have dramatically changed my trajectory, right? Like I think when I was in 7th grade, I was so focused on like being real cool. I focused on being probably too cool, but at the same time, if I would have never tried to be too cool, I would have never learned from that, and I would have also never been like the dude I am now, that's kind of like reserved and shit. I mean, y'all can see how like I am, you know what I'm saying? But no, man, like for real, just like I would just be like, keep going, you're on the right path. You know what I'm saying? Even when you're wrong, just keep going.
Yeah, but sometimes they'll say like failure can like better you sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Right,
You are,
what
I always trust somebody who failed before. Always, because you weren't. If you failed the worst you could ever fail in your life, you never want to have that feeling again. So you're gonna work hard. It's called it's called negative reinforcement. You know what I'm saying? And you'll learn from that mistake. Just like when you shock yourself, on something, I ain't touching that no more. Iron hot. You know what I'm saying?
The biggest thing that I want y'all to know is that you only know what you exposed to, right? And so if you're from the South Side, you're from the West Side, you already know everybody got the same type of environment they grew up. I'm from the East Side, South Shore, and so for me, it was very limited type of role models there, but you only know. So like I say, all I knew was my mom telling me you can't come home with less than an A or a B. You can't come home with less than A and B. So for me, I'm like, all right, cool. That's all I know. A and B's. All A's, 1 or 2 B's, boom. And so for me, it was just a very, gerbil on the wheel or whatever, the little hamster on the wheel thing, right? It's just literally, you got to get A's, boom. Now I go to a good high school. Got all straight A's. Now I go to a good college. And that was my life, right? But then when you get out of college, there's no more blueprint to success. No such thing. Everything is different. Right? Like I went to a pretty good school my whole life, great schools, but then you see people like you say, YouTube comedian, right? Guy might not even graduate high school, but he's able to now monetize in different ways. And I'm not saying that should be your trajectory. I'm saying that understand that continue to do great when it comes to school, but also be exposed to other things. Use the internet to learn other ways of making money and stuff like that.
Not on social media.
Because success is very subjective. It's very arbitrary at the moment, right? Like good grades is obviously very important. I think every household parent would agree with that. But once the blueprint is over, because once you get good grades in grade school, good grades in high school, good grades in college, and then you get a good job, blueprint is over. Now it's like, how do I get promoted? Now how do I do this? How do I, how do I have some type of residual income on the side? What businesses can I do? And right now, like I said, you guys are starting out at the age of like 13 with a business. This is early on, but look at this as a business. This is your brand. You know what I mean? So people on the north side of Chicago should be tuning in to the 606 Star. And my advice is literally just look at life, from a more holistic viewpoint. I'll stop woofing.
7th grade me, I think the first thing I would have told 7th grade me is probably to cut my hair. I had braids for a really long time, probably too long. But I think just having that and like growing up, first just growing up in general, I think everything was on a smaller scale. I remember like 7th grade, 8th grade, just starting to like really use the internet and having like my first computer like at the house when we used to use like the whatever the dial-up internet was. So AOL, right? So the AOL dial-up internet. So everything was such like on a smaller scale, and I never really at that time I didn't think outside of that. So I think if anything to just think big picture for everything. Everything in life, and just going off what Ross said as well with the school, it's like, okay, you get A's in high school, grammar school, college, you get a good job, but I think the biggest thing is once you get a good job and you always got straight A's and all that, you follow the blueprint, you struggle to think outside the box sometimes. And I think that's the people who, whether they graduate college, don't graduate high school, the people who are able to think outside the box and think full picture are normally the ones that have more success in life.
Alright, what's our favorite sport or like video game?
Baseball.
Baseball.
Yeah, because it's
I like baseball, but it's not my thing.
It's like
Strictly football over here.
Rico, what's your favorite sport, man?
What's your favorite video game?
okay,
Fortnite?
No, Fortnite's not my favorite video game. Favorite video
Don't
game
say
is
2K. I knew you was gonna say that.
Favorite
I know
sport is
you
football.
Hold on, it depends on which one you talking about.
18.
What's your system?
Well,
man?
NBA
Drop
and
your
NFL
game today.
2K.
Right, drop
Or
your
NFL
tags so I
What's the
can light
game
you up
with-
on any sport,
Right, what system?
on any game.
He
Xbox.
said NFL.
Drop your
you gotta
gamer
be playing
tag,
on
man.
PlayStation.
Might have to log on.
I'm playing on PS4. I don't really mess with Xbox.
PS4 garbage. Ain't nobody worried about that. PS4 is garbage.
But on top of that, what's your favorite sport?
Just for real. Nah, I like basketball. Basketball. I just like every time I get on the court with Ross, it's over with.
I'm perplexed at how you can say basketball.
It's kind of like when you watch LeBron play against like a child, a mere infant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But on the game side, I play Call of Duty. So anybody who wanted can get it.
Yeah.
Zoom in on my face.
My favorite sports always been basketball and boxing. A lot of contact, you know, and when it comes to, you know, so if anybody wants smoke, you can zoom in on me too. I'm like Floyd, believe it. Video games, I don't play too many, so as a shorty, like GoldenEye, like 007 was always the wave. N64.
Hey, 007, that was like a secret service or something.
Yeah, he's a British agent. He's a British spy, but he's the coldest spy ever.
That was fun at like, it was hot at like 10, 11,
That
12.
was the first jump with the trigger on it, but N64.
First person, all you see is the gun.
You get
It's the
you-
reason y'all even like any of these games,
Yeah.
Fortnite or Call of Duty.
GoldenEye
They
was the
basically
go.
took the shooter's view off of that.
Yeah.
Favorite sport, basketball. Favorite game, 2K. Xbox, new Coleon gamer tag. Anybody want smoke out there, hit me up.
Thanks for tuning in to 606 Talk this week. Thanks to Don, Ross, Dan, and Bahati. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.
You know what it is.
I kind of want to be Dan and not Don.
Don Corleone, when he said it, huh? What they mean?
That was about to feel too.
What's 606 mean?
The zip code of Chicago.